I live in a small town called Wichita Falls, Texas. I'm a paranormal investigator by profession, but I'm not one of those people who call every shadow a ghost. I always start with doubt and end up with belief. This is the story of a doll that destroyed generations of a single family. Her name was Joliet. I first heard about Joliet in 2019. An old woman named Catherine Morris emailed me. The email had only one line. "Mr. Harper, I think it's time someone knows the truth about Joliet." At first, I thought it was just another old haunted doll case, but when I reached her house, something didn't feel right. The air felt heavy, not evil, but burdened. Her home was clean, quiet, and beautifully old. Family portraits covered the walls, and in every single one of them, a single doll appeared. Same white dress, same hollow eyes, same faint smile. That was Joliet. Catherine made me tea, her hands trembling slightly as she spoke. "Ben, this doll has been passed down through the women of our family. 4 generations, and in every generation, one son dies. Always a son, and always 3 days after he's born." I tried to hide my disbelief. "Are you saying this doll is responsible for that?" I asked, half smiling. She didn't smile back. "It doesn't matter what I say, Ben. You'll hear her yourself tonight. Every time a son dies, she cries." Her voice broke, and for a moment I felt something tighten in my chest. Not fear, but sorrow. I decided to stay the night. I set up my recorders, EMF meters, and thermal cameras. At around 1:47 a.m., it began. A sound. Soft at first, like air escaping a crack in the wall. Then clearer. The unmistakable cry of a newborn baby. It echoed through the house. Real, raw, heartbreaking. I froze. Every hair on my arm stood up. I ran to Catherine's room. She was already awake, tears rolling down her cheeks. "You heard it too, didn't you? That's her. She mourns every son." I looked toward the wooden chest near her bed. It was half open. Inside, wrapped in a small white blanket, was Joliet. Her eyes were shut, but her cracked porcelain lips seemed to curve upward, almost smiling. The next morning, I asked Catherine where the doll came from. She opened an old wooden box marked with the year 1904. My great-grandmother received it from a friend. That woman's baby had died. She gave this doll as a gift, saying, "It's for your son." Catherine paused. "Since then, every generation has lost one son. Once, my mother tried to throw it away. The next morning, our house caught fire." There was no exaggeration in her voice, no dramatics, just the plain, painful tone of someone who's accepted a curse. That night, I set up my spirit box, a tool that scans frequencies for voices. As the static hissed, I spoke aloud. "Who are you?" Nothing. Then a faint voice broke through the static, a whisper that seemed to crawl out of the speaker. "Joliet." I froze. It wasn't the kind of voice a radio picks up. It was clear, intentional, aware. Catherine, standing behind me, whispered, "It speaks when it wants to. You shouldn't have called her name." I looked back at the doll. She was sitting perfectly still on the dresser, but I swear, her head was slightly tilted toward me now. 2 nights later, Catherine's health started to fail. She wouldn't eat. She barely slept. She kept saying one thing over and over. "She's angry, Ben. You woke her up." I checked on the doll. The lid of the wooden box was half open. Inside, Joliet's glass eyes were wide open, wet, as if she'd been crying. That was the moment I decided to leave. I packed my gear. As I reached the door, Catherine grabbed my wrist. Her eyes were terrified. "Don't take her with you, Ben. She'll follow you anyway." I didn't understand what she meant, but her words echoed in my mind all the way home. Back in my apartment, I reviewed the recordings. Most of them were static, nothing useful, except for one. At exactly 1:47 a.m., the baby's cry began again. And right before the clip ended, a faint whisper came through the speakers. "Don't forget me." I felt my blood turn cold. I immediately deleted the file. But the next morning, It was back on my computer. Same timestamp, different name, Joliet.mp3. I shut my laptop and tried to convince myself it was a glitch. But deep down, I knew better. A few weeks later, I got a call. Catherine had died. The doctors said it was a heart attack. But when I visited her home, the air felt heavy again, suffocating. Her body was gone. But on the nightstand beside her bed sat the doll. Same faint smile, same cracked lips, and in her tiny porcelain hand, a small burnt photograph of Catherine as a child. I turned to leave, but something made me glance back, and for a split second, I saw her eyes blink. I handed the doll over to the local police. They didn't believe a word of my story, of course, but 3 days later, they called me back. Mr. Harper, the officer said, that doll you gave us, it's gone. The evidence locker was locked from the inside. I didn't reply. What could I say? Since that day, I receive one phone call every year, always in October, always at night. When I answer, I hear the soft cry of a baby. And just before the call ends, a whisper, Ben, I'm still here. I still live in Wichita Falls. I stopped taking cases a long time ago. My equipment now sits in boxes gathering dust. But every night, when the house goes quiet, I hear faint scratching sounds, like tiny fingernails brushing against wood. Once, I woke up and found small marks on my desk, 4 tiny lines, parallel, deliberate, like the hand of something small, trying to reach out. And sometimes, in the dead of night, I feel someone watching me, from the dark corner of the room, from just beyond the edge of the light. I tell myself it's nothing, but deep down, I know the truth. Curses don't die. They move. They wait. Every time I close my eyes, I hear her soft voice in my head. You promised. You wouldn't forget me. I don't know where Joliet is now. Maybe someone found her at a flea market. Maybe she's sitting in another nursery. Maybe she's already chosen her next home. All I know is, some nights when I turn off the lights, I catch the faintest sound, a baby's cry, followed by a giggle. And when I wake up the next morning, my phone shows a missed call. No number, no message, just the name, Joliet.mp3, flashing on the screen. Some stories end when the lights go out. This one doesn't. Because some things, no matter how far you run, never let go. My name is Laura Henderson, and for the last 30 years, I've been working as a curator at the Quesnel Museum in British Columbia, Canada. I've seen hundreds of old things come and go: antique clocks, war uniforms, baby cribs, and faded wedding dresses. But in 1991, something came in that changed everything I knew about this place, and about death itself. It was raining that morning. The museum was almost empty when a woman walked in. Soaked, trembling, and holding a small cloth-wrapped bundle. She looked tired. Her eyes carried the kind of fear you can't fake. She came up to my desk and whispered, I need to leave this here. I can't keep it in my house anymore. I asked gently, what is it? She placed the bundle in front of me. When I unwrapped it, there she was, a porcelain doll. Her dress was torn, her face cracked down one side, and her glass eyes, deep, black, and lifeless, seemed to follow me. I asked, does she have a name? The woman looked at the doll, and her voice cracked as she said, Mandy. Then she turned and left, without another word. I wrote it down in our records. Artifact number M-1991. Doll, Mandy. That evening, I locked her in the storage room, turned off the lights, and headed home. But just as I reached the door, I heard something, a crackling sound, like glass shifting under pressure. I turned around. The door to the storage room was slightly open. I could have sworn I'd locked it. I shut it again, this time tight, and didn't think much of it, until the next morning. When I arrived at work, a few small things were missing: a pen, a mug, a set of keys. But the strangest part, when I went to check the storage room, Mandy wasn't where I had left her. She had moved. Just a few feet. Now she was sitting at the edge of the table, facing the door, facing me. I froze. No one else had the keys. No one else had been inside. I picked her up carefully, put her back, and told myself it was nothing. But then came the night shift. Our caretaker, Donald, told me the next morning that while he was locking up, he heard something inside the museum. A faint sound, like a child softly crying. He thought maybe someone had gotten stuck inside, so he followed the sound, right to the storage room. He opened the door, and the crying stopped. Silence. But on the table, Mandy's head was turned toward him, and the cracked part of her face was wet, as if someone had wiped away fresh tears. The next day, I decided to move her out into the main exhibit hall. I thought maybe keeping her around people would help, like the energy would calm down. For a week, nothing happened. Then one afternoon, a group of school children came for a tour. One little girl stopped near the glass case and whispering, "Poor Mandy, why is your face broken?" Right then, the lights flickered. Only for a second, but when they came back on, Mandy's eyes were staring directly at the child. The girl screamed and started crying. When her parents developed the photos they'd taken, in one of them, behind the glass case, you could see a faint reflection, a child-sized shadow standing right behind Mandy. After that day, everything got worse. Staff started hearing footsteps behind them, sometimes a whisper right by the ear, sometimes a cold breath on the neck. One afternoon, while I was working alone, I felt a hand grab my arm, cold, small. I turned around, no one there, but my arm was freezing. A few weeks later, a photographer came to document the museum. He was excited to capture the doll. He took a few shots, everything normal. But the moment he zoomed in on Mandy's face, his camera started to flicker. Then it shut off completely. He rebooted it and took one last picture. When the photo developed, there was a woman's shadow standing beside the doll. It wasn't me. It wasn't him. And there was nobody else in the room. I had to know the truth. I searched for the woman who brought the doll in, but she never replied to my letters. Finally, I traced her address through old donation forms. It led me to a small village, about 40 miles from Quesnel. Her house was abandoned. The door creaked open when I knocked. Inside on the kitchen table was a faded photograph. A little girl holding the same doll. On the back it said, "Elsie, 1910. A neighbor saw me and said softly, "That's Elsie. She died in a house fire long ago." They found her clutching that same doll. Her mother survived, but Elsie didn't. And the doll she held was Mandy. It all made sense now. Mandy wasn't just haunted, she was attached to the memory of a little girl who died scared and alone. When I returned to the museum, I couldn't bring myself to lock her away again. So I made a new display for her, a small glass case with soft lighting and pictures of children around it. A peaceful little corner. That night, for the first time, there was no crying. The staff said the atmosphere felt lighter. But there's one thing that still happens. Every morning when I check on Mandy, the edge of her cracked cheek is damp, as if someone's been crying. Sometimes I wonder, is Elsie's spirit really inside that doll? Or is it something else? Something that just doesn't want to be forgotten. Even now, new staff members say they have the same dream on their first night. A little girl, standing in the dark, whispering, "Don't leave me alone again." It's been over 3 decades now. Mandy still sits in her glass case, quiet, still, watching. Visitors smile and say, "What a beautiful old doll." I just smile back, because they don't know what's behind those eyes. They don't know that sometimes, in the dead silence of the museum at night, you can still hear it, that faint, sorrowful sound of a child softly crying. And when I hear it, I don't run anymore, because I know it's just Mandy, still crying, still waiting, but finally, not alone. I've seen thousands of cases in my life, cases where people claimed something lived inside their homes. A shadow, a whisper, or a presence. But Annabelle was different. I saw things with my own eyes that no human should ever witness. My name is Michael Harris. I worked in paranormal investigation for over 25 years. Now I'm retired. But even today, some nights, I still can't sleep. Because when I close my eyes, I remember her. The doll that carried death inside. It was 1970. We received a call from two nursing students, Donna and Angie. They said something strange was happening in their apartment. Donna's mother had given her a vintage Raggedy Ann doll for her birthday. Soft cloth body, red yarn hair, and a painted smile. Harmless, at first. But a few days later, weird things began. Donna said she'd wake up and find the doll sitting somewhere new, on the couch, in the kitchen, sometimes facing the hallway. At first she blamed Angie, but one day, both of them left for work, locked the apartment, and when they came back, the doll was sitting on the floor, holding a small piece of paper. On it were the words, "Help us." They swore no one had been inside. The windows were locked. No one else had a key. When my team and I arrived, the air felt heavy. It was like the room itself was breathing. The doll sat quietly on the floor, innocent, lifeless. But when I picked it up, a freezing wave ran through my hands, like something inside it had just woken up. Donna told me the doll sometimes tilted its head as if it were listening to unseen voices. One night, Angie woke up. Moonlight spilled through the blinds, and there, on her boyfriend Lou's chest, sat Annabelle. Her stitched smile hadn't changed, but her hands were covered in what looked like blood. Lou said he couldn't move. A crushing pressure held him down. Then, out of nowhere, 7 deep claw marks appeared across his chest and vanished within hours. Not human, not possible. Our research made one thing clear. This wasn't a haunted doll. It was a demonic presence pretending to be the spirit of a child. When the girls tried to communicate with it through a Ouija board, they unknowingly invited it in. Annabelle wasn't possessed. She was a gateway, a door between our world and the one beyond. We sealed the doll inside a glass case, protected with holy symbols and prayers. Later, Ed and Lorraine Warren placed it in their occult museum in Connecticut. Every week, someone new would visit. A skeptic, a thrill seeker, mocking the warnings. One young couple taunted the doll, saying, "If you're real, prove it." The next day, on their motorcycle ride home, they collided with a truck. Both died instantly. Lorraine once told me that at night, when the museum was locked and silent, she'd hear faint tapping, like fingernails against glass. Sometimes the condensation on the case showed finger streaks that hadn't been there before. And once, the doll's expression changed. That sweet, stitched smile turned into something angry. I saw it myself. I stood before the case. She looked harmless, small, almost pitiful. At the bottom, a sign read, "Warning, positively do not open." When I raised my eyes again, she was staring directly at me. A second ago, she wasn't. Decades have passed. Ed and Lorraine Warren are gone, but Annabelle remains, still locked behind glass, still under guard, still waiting. Some say she was moved. Others say she's still there, contained only by holy water and faith. But I'll tell you the truth. Faith can weaken. Glass can crack. Because sometimes, late at night, I feel someone standing in the corner of my room, small, motionless, just watching. And sometimes, as I drift into sleep, I hear a whisper near my ear. "Michael, do you still remember me?" I open my eyes. The room is empty, but sitting at the edge of my bed is a worn Raggedy Ann doll, still smiling. The story ends, but the fear doesn't. Some things never truly die. They just change form. And maybe, just maybe, Annabelle is still waiting for someone new.